All right, here we go. The prepper perspective. What's in the news and how it can impact you, and how do we prep for it? This is for February 13th. Brace for impact? There was an article about the UN planetary security control being activated. And this was around an asteroid, Yankee Romeo 4, could hit the Earth in 2032. It's okay, though. The likelihood is minimal. Only 1 in 77 chance. That's 1.3% chance. So that's okay. The UN group says they may begin to evaluate options if the risk stays over 1%. So one thing when I read that, I just want to mention that risk generally is thought of as probability times impact. So we look at what's the risk of something happening or things like that. So when they say the risk stays over 1%, now are they talking about purely the probability? Is that it's a 1% probability, a 1 in 77 chance? Sounds like probability to me. So the other part of risk is looking at what is the impact of that and then figuring out the risk. Now, interesting, because we prepare for 1 in 100-year floods. We put a lot of money and time and worry into them. Actually, a lot of places, look at, well, what's a 1 in 1,000-year flood? Let's prepare for that. Why? Well, because a 1 in 100-year event doesn't mean it happens once only every 100 years. That means there's a 1% chance, a 1 in 100 chance that it can happen every single year. And we prepare for that. And now this asteroid could hit the Earth, and there's a 1 in 77 chance that it could happen in the next 7 years. And the UN group may start to evaluate options if it stays over 1%. We buy lottery tickets with odds greater than 1 in 77, don't we? Should grocery stores label by country? Now, wouldn't this be interesting? I think this would be pretty awesome. We should be striving for, to help the environment, to help our local economies, to help with our preparedness. We should be striving to buy locally, but it is tough. And, people are generally lazy. I was in the store the other day picking up a few things, and it took a lot longer to read all of the labels. Is it made in Canada? Is it a product of Canada? What's the difference? It's a lot of effort. So wouldn't it be nicer if we just labeled things accordingly in the different sections? Wouldn't that help? Wouldn't it be awesome to walk in and if you say, oh, you know what, I'm not going to buy things made in the States or China or the UK or Canada or wherever, or I do want to specifically buy that. I think that's a pretty cool idea. Buy local. The words we choose. This is interesting. Now, I've heard it before and never thought much of it. But lately, with all the rush to appease Trump, Canada has announced that we have a fentanyl czar now. And I know we've had privacy czars before. There's actually been a number of czars before, but it's just popping up a lot now. And it just made me think, why do we use the word czar? And honestly, comrade, I don't know. I guess emperor, chief, boss, big cheese, head honcho, top dog, didn't have the right ring to it. Very, very interesting. The words we choose. Now, I know English is a living language. Another one, though, to think about, and this one is a little bit more serious and meaningful in a lot of respects. Continuous versus continual. So the word continuous refers to something that happens without interruption or ceasing. Continual refers to something that recurs frequently or regularly. So this gets important if we're working on things and saying, okay, well, we do, you say a regulator, or you make a statement in your business saying we do continuous monitoring. Do you really? Are you doing it without interruption? Now, sometimes the answer might be yes. When I worked in oil and gas or in the water sector, we would do, for example, continuous flow monitoring, where you would have sensors in the pipeline whether it's water, oil, milk, I don't care, whatever it is, and you're continuously monitoring the flow. Or you might have continuous monitoring, through electronic or digital means with something else. Okay. Now, continual monitoring would be I go out and take a sample, for example, a water sample, and I wait a little while, maybe a week, a day, an hour. I go out and take another one. That's continual monitoring. There's a big difference. If you're holding yourself to the word continuous, that takes a lot more resources, a lot more technology, a lot more people. So be careful with those words. Think about it with improvement too. I see it all the time. People say, oh yeah, we do continuous improvement. Do you really? Do you really do continuous improvement, improving unending, not ceasing, no breaks? Or are you doing continual improvement where you make some changes, some tweaks, then you monitor it for a while, you see how it's going, is it working better for you or worse? And then maybe you make some more changes. And then you monitor for a while. Are you really making changes all the time? The Basel III capital floor level, this one may not resound with everyone. Basel III is about banking requirements. And the capital floor requirements for Canadian banks, according to a quick search to make sure I was looking at things appropriately, it says 65% is the level of your capital to have on hand in 2023, increasing to 72.5%. Now, knowing the particulars about this is not really the issue. But the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions, that's OSFI, this article said they will defer increases until further notice. Now, that article said that the requirement, the floor is staying at 67.5. So to me, when I read that, if the Basel requirement is currently 65%, that means, okay, we're doing a little bit better than the current requirement. Instead of 65, we're at 67.5. The article said that there remains uncertainty when others will be compliant. So there is a requirement that by 2027, that capital floor requirement be 72.5%. OSFI said, we're not sure when others will be compliant, and we will not extend the implementation lead that we share with a few. So that seemed to me to say, okay, we're ahead of the basic requirement, but we're just going to hold here. Instead of continuing to get to that 72.5% by 2027, because others aren't compliant yet, what's the rush? We're not going to be compliant. OSFI also said in the article that they commit to notifying banks 2 years prior to resuming an increase. Well, by my math, if being compliant means getting to 72.5 by 2027, and we're at 67.5 in 2025, and we're going to notify people, the banks, institutions, 2 years before resuming an increase, why are we on hold? Shouldn't we be working towards the 72.5? Isn't being at 67.5, it's not really ahead of the curve. We're just on track to getting to 72.5. Or are we? Again, not knowing the particulars about what does that mean to increase from 67.5, if that's where we currently are, up to 72.5. What's the pace of that over the next 2 years? Because we're already within the 2-year time frame that they stated. Mitigation and thoughts. It's okay to lead and finish the race before others. We don't have to be on par with everyone else. I often heard this in different areas I worked in, different companies, different sectors. The first question, if I went in to the executive to ask for more funding or more resources or to present a plan that says, here's where I think we should go. The first question, almost without fail, was, what's everyone else doing? Okay, it's important to know what your peers are doing, but do you want to be, the same as everyone else? Isn't it okay to lead? And then as I worked for this one company in particular, I remember, talking to a senior vice president, and he had always said, "Well, what's everyone else doing? What's everyone else doing?" And then one time, I was presenting with some new equipment, and he said, "But nobody else has this, right?" And I said, "No, they don't." He said, "Well, yeah, let's lead the way. We can be out there ahead of this." It's like industry best practice. That basically just means what's everyone else doing. It's not cutting edge, not leading edge. Even that word, those words are different. It doesn't mean what a lot of people think it means. Um, watch Princess Bride. It's inconceivable. So strive to increase your resilience, whatever industry you're in. Work towards your goals. Set your targets. Right? It's okay to get there. These regulations a lot of times are put in for good reasons. It's okay to get there before others. That's it. That's all. Thanks very much for listening. Hope you like and subscribe. A fantastic day.